Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Pod Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin and this episode 405. I'm joined on this Wednesday evening by my co-host Stacy. That is at StacyPatton89 on Twitter. Stacy, how are you doing?
Looking forward to Alcaraz Sitter, which, if you don't know about that, you should learn. It's a good distraction from watching the worst NBA finals in recent memory. So,
Yeah, good NBA Finals, shitty teams. Alcaraz Center should be good. We're not going to talk about Alcaraz Center. We are going to talk about basketball. Maybe not too much about the finals. But before we do that, I do have to make a few announcements. First, being that Strickland has an Instagram. Check that out. That is at the Strickland on Instagram. We are posting all kinds of new content on there. The Strickland also has a YouTube channel where you may be watching this podcast. If you are not done so already, please like, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment. That'd be a huge help to us. The Strickland also has merchandise, which you can find on our website at www.thestrick.land. There's a link that'll take you to the merchandise store, and there's all kinds of cool stuff on there. T-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, coffee mugs, water bottles, you name it. We've got it. The Strickland also has a Patreon, which you can subscribe to. There are a number of different tiers. There's a $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland, this podcast that I host every Friday at the Prez. You also get access to Takes from Obvious Bozos, our newest podcast that is hosted by Andrew Steele, a.k.a. Doug, along with Zach Blatter. And you get access to the Strickland Discord where the conversation never stops. There are further tiers. There's a $9 tier that gets you access to Strickland Roll, my solo pod where I rant around with Stephen Moore. You also get access to wonderful premium work goes by Matthew Miranda, one of the best in the business. And now you get access to Strictly NFL, which you guessed it is our podcast that is on the NFL. That is hosted by Constantine Metricos. There are further tiers. There's a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and $100 tiers come with a variety of additional benefits, like listening on pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and even potentially co-host a podcast alongside yours truly one day, whether you choose to subscribe or not. No necessarily possible without you, and no necessarily possible without Bet Online. Bet Online is your number one source for all your summer sports this season for MLB, golf, NBA, and NHL playoff stats. All latest stats, news, and scores available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. So far, things are relatively quiet in the Knicks verse. Not a lot of serious reporting on. We're getting daily horrible trades that involve Julius Randle, where the Knicks seem to give up what fucking 150 cents to a dollar, which don't really make sense. So we have that going for us, which has sucked. We have heard some scuttlebutt about they want to trade out of both their first round picks, and then today Begley said that actually there's been discussion that they want to keep first round picks because their depth was a concern towards the end of the Pacer series, and they think that they need to do something to replenish that. My guess is that there are people that are advocating for both strategies, and Leon will just pick whichever one he thinks ultimately yields the best value, whether that be drafting somebody, trading it, for somebody, whatever it is. I don't know. We're I don't even know what are we, like 3 weeks out from the Knicks losing in the playoffs. How do you feel about everything we've heard so far? And we've also heard that Tibbs is very likely to get an extension that starts in 8 figures, which isn't really much of a surprise. Johnny Bryant has interviewed for the Cavs job. Not sure how much interest there is beyond Donovan Mitchell there, but that's something to keep an eye on. But given all that, I mean, and how do you feel about everything we've kind of heard? And we will talk about Isaiah Hartenstein a little bit. I want to do a little game with him after this. But yeah, I mean, we also have the Isaiah Hartenstein and OG Anunoby free agent, I guess, sweepstakes looming at the end of this month. Yeah, I mean, look, we're now removed from the cauldron of the playoffs and losing an annoying series and all those type of things. How do you feel about how things are stacking up right now?
I want to play a game.
I would laugh, but I'd probably fucking shoot snot rockets out of my nose right now.
Have you? I'm at the age now where I have things called snits, where it's a snot bubble that also ends up with a little bit of a shit, and it's not fun.
Shit?
Yeah.
Like poop out of your nose?
Yeah, you snort a lot, and then a little comes out.
Like a little crusty.
It gets a little crusty out there. That's how you know you're getting old. In terms of my thing is just trust in Leon, right? We always hear a million rumors. we don't always exactly agree with what he's going to do, and it ends up well. For those who think we should have won a championship by now, obviously it hasn't ended up as well as you'd hope, but it's tough to bet against them. What would I expect them to do is a little bit different. I would expect them to at least get one rookie. They need another contract out there. They need a wing. Given their development, given what you've seen, this is for a team that has traded so many first round picks. They've done a great job of building that stash up, right? I mean, let's talk about this playoffs. Deuce McBride, right, I don't know if they get this far without him. I don't know if that's a crazy thing to say, but they probably struggle to beat the Sixers without him. And if they don't, then he certainly was a huge part of that. And playing against the Pacers. So that's just him. There's so many guys. Mitchell Robinson was not this guy before Tibbs got him. He was a very talented but unpolished player. He has still, the free throws and all that. There's still issues, but foul trouble has gone down, and he's become much more cerebral as a defensive player. Grimes quickly, all of those guys really improved. I think they will add someone on a rookie contract. I also think another factor in all that is what do they want to do with Rokas Jokubaitis? Because that is a player who's on a rookie contract who has performed well in Europe. He's promising, and he fills a need that you have, right? Deuce McBride has been awesome, but if you put another lead ball handler next to him with some size, that could really juice the bench unit. So in terms of how I feel, I am very much in Leon I trust at this point. I think that from what I can glean, they don't want to dump Julius Randle, which they shouldn't. But if the right move is there, they're open to moving him. Will the right move be there? I think Julius Randle is a very tough player to value right now because what he has the rep of a floor raiser, not as much of a ceiling raiser, right? So if you trade him to a team, ostensibly you trade a guy like that to a team maybe that, that's rebuilding and could use a player like that, and they give you a lot of picks, but it may not create as many opportunities for the young guys as they would want. And maybe you trade him to a contender, but he's a little bit of a difficult fit on a contender. That's the whole reason that he would be open from the Knicks to be traded. So I think that the Knicks front office is going to look for value where they can find it. My guess is that it'll be something more of a marginal move, I would imagine. My guess is they end up signing DeAnthony Melton to the MLE. But that's where I'm at right now in the Knicks front office.
Worth noting, if they want to use the MLE, they'd likely have to non-guarantee Bogdanovich's season, his 24-25 contract. He's got $2 million guaranteed, so you gain $17 million.
Do you think that would be worth it if they could sign a guy like DeAnthony Melton?
I don't know. I think the team is kind of running up on how many guys that size you need. We already had that problem to start this season, which was alleviated when we made the trade for OG. So I don't know. And if they bring in Rokas, do you really need a DeAnthony Melton? I know they're not the same. They're different types of players, but that's something to consider. Yeah, I mean, look, the thing with all the reports right now is, as Gordon Gekko said, I look at 100 deals a day. I choose one.
Greed is good, Shwin. Greed is good.
But, I mean, that's what this is they probably are looking at all types of scenarios. I'm sure that this isn't stuff they haven't thought about prior to the season ending, but obviously you're probably a little bit more active this time of the year. And not just because you yourself want to be more active, but there's more discussion with teams around the league, especially as the draft approaches. So I think that's always important to note is like, who is leaking this stuff? Like, who does it benefit? And I got to say, like, look, we've had Jake Fisher on here, so this is not really like a shot at him. But I take everything these guys say with a huge grain of salt because they're all serving. You know, what does he say in Infinity? What master do you serve? And they're all serving somebody. But he had a couple of reports. One being that there'd be teams that might push the Knicks to sign OG, and it's like, I'm sorry, like the Knicks didn't trade for OG blind. His son is like Leon's son is his agent. They knew he was going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. This is a guy they've chased for what, 1.5, 2 years, something like that. So they've coveted him. They valued him highly. I have a hard time. Maybe they'll try to negotiate, and maybe some of this stuff that's coming from him about like he wants.
But how high do you think that
and
number
35
can
million.
go?
35 million. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Talk about that later. Don't ruin the game. But yeah, like, I just have a hard time thinking like there's any number that they're not going to be willing to match or find a way to structure their deal using the 5th year. They can offer him a 5th year to kind of trump that overall. And then he also had something about Hartenstein commanding maybe like $100 million deal. Love Isaiah Hartenstein. I think he's awesome. I think if the Knicks lose him, they're down Shit's Creek. If a team wants to give him $100 million, be my guest. Like, I don't think he's a $100 million player. Don't think he's a $100 million center. It's not a knock on him. But I think the things he does very specifically offensively, but even overall, but I think very specifically offensively, the things he does offensively really shine through when he's paired with high-level shot creators and guys that have good chemistry with him and can create advantages for him to play off of. He's not somebody you throw the ball to in the post and he creates. He's not somebody who's going to take guys off the bounce. He has his floater, which is nice, but he's not a great finisher around the rim really at all for a 7-footer. In all honesty, he plays smaller than his size at times around the rim offensively. Defensively, as good as he is and as great as the numbers were, I think we saw in the playoffs, specifically against Joel Embiid, that this is not Hakeem Olajuwon. It's probably not even. This is not
Joel
Anthony Davis.
Joel Embiid is a great player.
Does he? Because Mitchell Robinson had him in hell.
In hell?
I'm not saying
over the course of the series, like his plus minus was insane. I don't know. I haven't broken it down.
What was he doing against Mitch? He sucked against Mitch, dude. Like, we don't need to he destroyed Hartenstein, which is fine. Like you said, this is not a knock on him, but it's a reality. If you're an elite defensive center, it needs to get held against you. That, quite frankly, Joel Embiid is not Nikola Jokic. Joel Embiid is not a guy who has some sterling playoff reputation and record that it's like, well, what are you going to do? You can't do anything. Like, no, you can. And honestly, Mitch did a much better job on him. Precious did a better job on him in Game 4, down in crunch time.
Do you think like prime Jacob Poeltl, because Poeltl's the last guy I can remember when the Sixers played the Raptors. Poeltl got torched. The Sixers lost that series, but with Embiid on, they were plus 87. Do you think Poeltl, in terms of overall value, is a good comp for Hartenstein?
No, he's much better than Poeltl. Also, Poeltl wasn't on that team. The starting center on that was Gasol.
They got Poeltl in the Kawhi trade, didn't they?
No, they traded Poeltl in the Kawhi trade. They got Poeltl back last year at the trade deadline.
That's right. Yeah.
I just like, look, Hartenstein's awesome. He's not a $100 million player to me. That's just what it is. Like, if a team wants to pay him $100 million, more power to them, and good for him. He's good for him. Get a bag. Nobody's going to begrudge him that. And yes, I know that there are guys like Clint Capella and Nikola fucking Vucevic, and generally guys that I don't think are nearly as good as him, who make more right now than what the Knicks can max offer. The Knicks can give him a max offer of 4 years, about $72.4 million. That would start, I think, at like 16.9 or something like that in the first year. Whatever the case may be, maybe that's a little bit undervalued for what he is, but I don't think he's a $100 million player, and that's ultimately, when we get to the game, we'll talk about it. But yeah, look, but when I see that report from Jake Fisher where it's like, oh, there's a team that's going to give $100 million, I'm like, I kind of have to look at the market. And I'm like, what team is out here with cap space? Again, when we do
Oklahoma
the
City,
game,
San Antonio, Philly.
yeah, we'll talk about it. I don't think those teams. I don't see any of these teams deciding, hey, you know what, $100 million, let's start them off at fucking $22 million, and that's our cap space for this year. And in the case of a team like the Thunder, it might be the last chance or one of the last opportunities you get to have cap space. Orlando has $49.5 million in cap space. That's wonderful. They're also looking at extending Jalen Suggs and extending Franz Wagner. Is that really the big ticket item you want from this offseason? I have a hard time seeing that. Maybe I'm wrong.
But if there's like a barren free agent market, that could be a thing, right?
It could be. I don't think it will be. And I just look again. We'll get to this when we get to it. It's not my point right now. My point is, I take all these reports that I see from Jake Fisher very much with a grain of salt, because I think that there are teams that want the Knicks to ensure the Knicks pay top dollar to keep Isaiah Hartenstein, whatever that number may be that they can offer him. I think there are teams and agents and people with agendas who want to see the Knicks make sure they pay top dollar for OG Anunoby. I think those things exist out there. So, everything that you see right now probably gets reported for one reason or the other. Most of it, 99% of it, will end up being bullshit. A few things will be correct. Maybe those things will be correct. I'm skeptical. But yeah, look, I don't know. I don't know. I still haven't really. I'm not planning on doing any fucking draft prep work because the odds are the Knicks will trade.
Prep for.
Yeah, that's what Prez is here for, and odds are the Knicks will trade one or two of these picks, and they'll trade down 5 fucking times before they take somebody. Who knows what they're gonna do? So I'm not gonna get invested in any particular prospect because then I'll probably have my heart broken. So that's where I'm really at. But yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty relaxed about everything right now. And to your point, I do think Leon has earned the benefit of the doubt as far as should we trust him? Should we trust his ability to maneuver, be flexible, find value, and improve the team in the offseason?
Yeah, I mean, that's I think they have a pretty good idea of where all these guys are valued. I'm gonna ask because you did retweet Devin Carter and you said I'm in. Prez is posting Devin Carter. I don't know if you looked too much at Devin Carter's tape. What made you in on him?
Seems like a dog, can shoot, scores. His numbers improved every year. Not too deep. Nothing too deep. Good size. Also that.
How's the girth though?
I don't know. You'll have to tell me. You're the draft expert.
Well, it's, I mean, what we haven't talked about this. What is kind of in terms of what they do to do, right? We trust Leon, all of that. There's some big decisions that are already on the plate. Beyond that, in terms of what they need to do to add, is it a ball handler? Is it just anyone who can draw more attention from Brunson? Is it perimeter defense, which was a bugaboo against the Pacers? Although, that seems like that's something they just do. They had a lot of success against the Celtics, even without Haliburton. What are you, in terms of not just protecting what they already have, what do you want to see them add?
I mean, I've talked about this previously. I just think they need another ball handler, somebody who can get into the paint. Also, they need to get stronger in terms of their perimeter defense.
Anthony Melton would fit both of those categories, right?
Yeah, I'm a little bit less sure that he provides much in terms of dribble penetration. I know his pick and roll numbers were good this year. I just don't think that he's a dynamic pick and roll player or dribble penetration guy.
But do you buy into the ball handler by committee thing, right? Because if he's not great at it, Deuce isn't great at it, but in small samples, both are decent at it.
It's more viable. It's more viable with your bench unit, but I still think ultimately, if you sign D'Anthony Melton, which who knows if they'll do that or not. He also had a lot of injury issues this year, so that's something to consider. He's a player I've liked forever. Anybody that's listened to this podcast for a while will know that. So he's a player I love. It's a good 3-point shooter also. But ultimately, like when Brunson sits, you're looking at, you can have ball handler by committee, but you're going to be looking at Randle. You're going to be looking at OG very strongly, assuming
So
he comes back.
is it fair to say
to be like your high usage guys when Brunson sits?
Is it fair to say? I mean, they could get another ball handler, right? Let's say they get Tyus Jones. I think it's a high end version of what they could get, and he's going to get re-signed for a lot and might not be available, but that's a high end version of the guy they could get to fill that role. Is it fair to say that Randle is like the biggest inflection point for this team? If he can carry the bench and be a good number 2, they don't need anything, and if he can't, they need to get rid of him and replace him with someone who can. Is that fair to say at this point?
Yeah, I mean, it's been the case since 2023 offseason, basically.
Well, I mean, something seems to have changed because now, I think even 2023, you would have said, yeah, Randle may not be the guy, but I mean, now we know Brunson is the guy, right? We know we have the best player. And how much finagling room do you have with that number 2, right? I think it also begs the question, can Dante be the number 3? Because he averaged 22 points a game in the playoffs. That sounds like a number 3 to me on high shooting.
Yeah, I don't
like
know.
How much
he's maybe. I still think having him and OG is kind of how you get around not having like a true 3. And I also think the league is deep enough where having a true 3 is usually not realistic. The only contender that I would say has like 3 guys you could call to some degree. We don't need to debate where they rank, but high level shot creators, offensive players that has 3 of them would be the Celtics, which is why they should win the NBA championship if Kristaps Porzingis is healthy. We'll see if they do or not.
is it a shot creator? Porzingis?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely somebody that is more than just like throw him the ball when he's open.
But you don't really want him creating though, right?
I mean, do you really want Julius Randle creating all the time? No, but like this is what you have to work with, and you have to find ways around that. Like, do you think that
I would trust
Jamal Murray fucking sucks when Nikola Jokic sits? It's a fact. He's fucking awful. He's terrible. They won a championship. Like your number 2 is never going to be. But he's not your number 2.
Yeah, so as a number 3, I see that. But for the same reasons, and he's not 7 feet tall, but he's a better shooter. So for the same reasons, I can make that argument for Dante, right?
Sure. But like, you don't think Kristaps is better than Dante, really?
Only because he's 7 feet tall, but Dante's better.
But it doesn't matter what that matters.
And that's defense too. Not on offense, just as an offensive.
No, but that matters. Shooter. No, that matters. There's a huge difference between, we have a 2 guard as a light.
But we're not talking. We're talking about just offense right now, though.
Yeah, but that matters. Position, what your position is matters on offense. If you have a fucking 5 that teams have to close out to and have to game plan for in ways that are not normal. Like, that's way more valuable. As good as Dante is, I'm sorry, that's way more valuable.
It is more valuable. What I'm saying is that if that can be done with KP and Dante gives you other things at the 2.
What does Dante give me at the 2?
Movement shooting.
Yes.
Movement shooting.
Yeah, but you should generally.
I think he's more dynamic off the dribble than Porzingis. He cannot post up.
I don't.
I also think he's a better passer.
Off the dribble. I think he's actually
more than KP.
The more he dribbles,
KP is not.
Yes, but he's going to be more dynamic off the dribble because he's a 2.
He's also a much better passer.
I would Kristaps.
That passing shit does not come easy.
Kristaps is a better off the dribble player for a 5 than Dante is for a 2. I don't even think it's a fucking question.
I think the passing matters, man. Like, because if that's your third guy, they have to be able to make decisions. Like Porzingis
Dante's
doesn't.
Passing.
Yeah.
Dante averaged under 3 assists a game this year.
That's 1 for a third option. If
he averaged under 3, he averaged under 3 assists per game in the playoffs this year.
But he's the third option
in the playoffs.
And as a connect, it's not bad. Porzingis
also, he averaged 17.8 points per game in the playoffs.
Oh, I saw 22. My bad. That might have been just the.
That might have been the regular season after Randle and OG went down or something.
Yeah. my point is, I do think he's a pretty significantly, like, when he gets the ball in traffic, he is going to make decisions at a better level than Porzingis will.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I mean, he's a guy who, to me, is like, he gets you assists that are dependent on other teams or another player bending the defense and giving an opportunity, which is basically what Kristaps is dependent on. But Kristaps also is a post threat. He's been a very, very good post player.
What's his post numbers?
I mean, he was like 90 something percentile, 100%.
Really?
Last 2 years. Yes. I'm positive of that. So, like, he's more efficient too. He's just a more efficient player.
Overall?
Yes. Dante was what? He was sub 60 true shooting, 59.7, which is obviously not bad. It's great. And considering some of the stuff that we had to ask him to do, it's fantastic.
Jesus, Porzingis was high.
Yes.
Oh,
Kristaps was at just under 65 true shooting this season. That was at 25 usage. Like, I just don't think it's really, like, I don't even think it's close. I think Kristaps is...
No, I'm not saying Dante's better. I'm saying if Porzingis can be that third option for the Knicks, can Dante be the third option? Because I think we have a better first option than them.
Yeah,
and
but I think our second option is that until Julius does it in the playoffs, it's hard for me to say he's better than.
Well, that's what I was saying. It's kind of everything else comes down to that, right? Do we need another point guard? Well, if Julius can do it, maybe Deuce can handle it, right? If Julius Randle can do it, if Julius Randle is enough, that's kind of what it comes. It is Schrodinger's Randle, whatever. Like, we don't know, we do know, whatever. Like, I don't think, like, for this franchise, he is the inflection point. He is what you do with Julius Randle determines what's going to happen. I don't think that's understating it, right?
I agree, but I also have repeatedly said I do not think replacing him with
Mikal Bridges.
It's like you got OG, because the initial appeal of getting Mikal Bridges is like, be a great third option, and we need that wing defender who we can throw on various types of guys and really bring everything together defensively. Well, you got OG Anunoby, and I don't know what to make of him offensively. I think the sample size of them in New York is just way too small to take.
Yeah, but they murder everyone with him on the floor.
Of course, but I'm talking about him individually. I don't know, like, can he be a third option? Can he be a fourth? I think if him and Dante are there together and your number two is a number two, yeah, I think that's fine.
But kind of on that note, like if there's a sliding scale of how much Julius can be a number two, right? How much can the Knicks, let's say he's not the guy you need at number two, but it's a sliding scale. Is there like a version of this where you can get him enough more Dantes, more OGs or whatever in some?
No.
It's binary, you think?
Yes. Like, you cannot have a guy just be like, hey, create everything. That's fucking ridiculous. It's absurd. We saw that. We saw it this year. Like, you think that, like, he ran out of fucking gas.
Help. Can Julius be that second guy?
I don't know.
So binary that Julius is that or isn't? Or Julius with some more guys?
Julius either is
around
or is
him, like Deuce, or like
no. Julius either is or isn't. There's nothing else that matters. He either is that player or he is not, and then you're still looking for that player. Nothing else matters. Adding more quality role players will only
guys
that on the margins.
Help him with that, who could make it a little bit more easier.
We had fucking Emmanuel Quickley, who was great with him before this. Like, we had guys. Like, we already know what this team
would
looks
have been
like.
better in the playoffs with more experience.
We'll see. My point is, you already know what this team was in that scenario, and it wasn't good enough. And there's a reason they took a huge step when OG got here, because OG addressed various things that we needed.
But we haven't seen them with OG and
Correct.
In the playoffs.
Correct. We don't know what that looks like, which is why it is still an open-ended question that to me is 100% a binary. And I'm sorry, like, Mikal Bridges cannot create offense. Now, you can tell me Julius Randle, if you believe Julius Randle is never going to be capable of doing that in the playoffs, that's fine with me. I don't know if I agree with that. I think he deserves the opportunity to show us, but I also know that deserve ain't got nothing to do with it. So,
we got stakes. We have stakes now.
yeah.
Right? There's
So
going to be a lot of money given out. So
right. So if you're done, like you're like, well, we can't. I don't want to extend him, and I don't trust him, so we should move on. Fine. That's your belief. It's very well reasoned. That's fine. If your belief is trade him, get me Mikal Bridges, I'm sorry. I think that's laughable. I really think that's laughable based on what we just saw in this playoffs. Like yeah, maybe you beat the Pacers. You probably do beat the Pacers if you just
we
plug
beat
in Mikal Bridges.
if OG or even if we had Hart, fuck OG. Sorry, not fuck OG. I love OG. If we had Hart, we beat the Pacers.
Yeah, whatever it is. My point is, if you add Mikal Bridges in place of Julius Randle and he was healthy in a way that obviously Randle wasn't, then yeah, I think that it's very likely or possible or however you want to phrase it, they beat Indiana, like that they beat the Sixers as they did, and then they beat Indiana.
But that's not the question, right? The question is
you're not letting me finish.
No, what I'm saying is the question is Bridges in place of a healthy Randle, right? If we had healthy Randle, would Bridges be better than that, right?
That's my point, is that I don't think he would be. Like, because your point is not, do you want to be better than a team you already beat in the first round, or a team that I think me, you, and 90% of other Knicks fans believe we were better than in the second round. Like, that's not the bar anymore. I'm not worried about that. I mean, yes, you're worried about that because teams get better and blah, 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 blah. But like, you are worried about now, okay, well, how do we get from we're really good and we're right there to we're a contender? Now, the two things, there are people that are like, well, we saw what this team was in January. Randle gets healthy. We bring OG back. We bring Hartenstein back. Maybe Mitch's minutes are better managed because, we can just fucking play him off the bench, manage him better, whatever it is. If you want to see that team run it back, we didn't see Mitch, by the way, with that team in January. I think that's that is extremely reasonable. We also never got to see Bogey with that team. So if you're just like, I think I've seen enough that that team,
his health may not be reliable.
Yeah, I want to see that. Totally reasonable. If you think that you want to move on from Julius Randle, which again I think is reasonable, I'm sorry, I do not think it's reasonable to think that simply adding Mikal Bridges puts us as like, maybe you could have beat Boston this year because Porzingis was out, but a healthy Boston I think is still better than that team, because the difference.
What about the power of friendship?
What about it? It's a great thing, but
he went to Villanova.
Good for him. So did Amari Spellman. Let's fucking sign his fat ass. But the difference to me between Boston and the Knicks in that scenario would be, yeah, if you want to say Brunson's a better number one option than Jason Tatum, I agree with that. And I think Tatum is a very imperfect number one option. I also think that Jaylen Brown is better off the bounce than who would be their number two in that scenario? Mikal Bridges. He's better than Mikal Bridges. He can actually create consistently.
You think he's better than Randle?
From what we've seen in the playoffs, yeah, absolutely, no question. But maybe Randle is different. Maybe he gets to the playoffs now and he'd be fine. If Randle can translate regular season performance into the playoffs, then no, I think Randle is better. Okay, now you do your third option. Who's your third option? Let's say it's Porzingis. I would trust Porzingis to give me a high-scoring game in the playoffs over OG Anunoby. I would do that.
White too, I would probably say.
Yeah. I would also say if my fourth option is Derek White or Drew Holiday, both of whom can run pick and rolls, both of whom can create off the bounce, that's a much more dynamic five that still has great size and defensive integrity than what the Knicks have at the table. And as great as Jalen Brunson is, look, Jeff, our pal Jeff, it's at Frank Barrett 119, him and XJ over on their pod, Hot Hand Theory, they had a really good episode after our season was over, sorry. And they talked about, they had it wasn't really like a cut and dry thing, but it was like, would replacing Randle with Mikal Bridges, how much would they be better? If so, how much better? Whatever their thoughts were. And Jeff's point was, he's more of an additive. He's a clear additive piece in a way that Julius isn't, because Julius is more individual. You have to put stuff around him and guys have to adjust him. And I think that's a valid point. What I would say is that additive pieces derive a lot of their value from guys exactly like Julius, guys that can create, guys that when things break down can get you a bucket. And while the Celtics have a lot of additive pieces, but those are all guys that have experience, at least four of them, Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, and Drew Holiday. Those are 4 guys that have experience playing higher usage roles, being more central to their offensive, to being offensive fulcrums. And, we saw how it went for Mikal Bridges when he was asked to do that this year. And yeah, you could be like, well, he was number 1, not a number 2. Yeah, I agree. But I also think in the playoffs, we see how much all that stuff matters. And I'm just a little bit more like, I think you still need, would it be ideal if you could trade Julius Randle for prime fucking Paul George? Or sure, yeah, that'd be fucking
What about
awesome.
now, Paul George?
I mean, I think there's a chance they're better next year. I think they probably are better next year. But Paul George on a 4-year, what is it, 200 and fucking whatever $1 million you can get. It's a different case, and he's also 34, so you never know when the cliff is coming.
I'm 34, man. Are you saying the cliff has come for me?
Yeah, well, I think your athletic peak has passed you by.
I'm so hurt, man.
I know.
It's fucked up.
But but that's not what Mikal Bridges is. Mikal Bridges is not prime fucking Paul George. He's like, I don't even know. He's like
Otto Porter, I think, is the best.
I mean, I think he's better than Otto. I don't know. But the other thing too is like he's not even.
Otto Porter got a max at the time, by the way. So
yeah, that was thanks to shout out Sean Marks for that one. But like Mikal Bridges is not even a particularly he's not a knockdown 3-point shooter. Like Mikal Bridges has been shooting. I think he's like a 37% career 3-point shooter. I'll look it up right now.
So
for his career, Mikal Bridges is a 37.5 3-point shooter. Like this is not like I always believe this. This is my fundamental belief about Mikal Bridges. I think people have an idea of what Mikal Bridges was that year they went to the finals. He shot 54% from the field. He shot 42.5% from 3. Since then, this is what he shot from 3. 36.9, 38.7, 37.6, 37.2. So even in Phoenix, his last 2 seasons there, last season and a half, I guess you could say, when he had to be
numbers. Sorry,
I can look it up. But even in his last 2 seasons or year and a half in Phoenix, when he was asked to carry more usage because Chris Paul is getting older, he's hurt, Devin Booker's missing time, blah blah blah, whatever the reasons. This is a guy who did not shoot particularly great from 3 when asked to do that. And that was as like a 3rd option a lot of times, or a 2nd option, which is effectively what you'd be asking him to do here in New York. So for 21-22, he was at 5.3 threes per 100 possessions, and he shot that at 36.9%.
Wow. That low?
For 22-23, his time in Phoenix, he shot 6.3 threes per 100 possessions. That was at 38.7%. Then he goes to Brooklyn, second half of the year, 27 games. He gets his volume to 9.6 threes per 100 possessions, 37.6%. And then this year he's at 10.3 threes per 10.3 threes per 100 possessions at 37.2%.
So in Brooklyn, he has upped the volume and been solid on 3. I don't think the shooting is the big, and let's look also how much of it was assisted. If we look at he's still getting 12% of his shots were unassisted this year, 16%. So he's taking a lot of threes, but they're mostly catch and shoots. I think he's a good fit. To your point, though, there are trades that have the Knicks giving up Randle and picks. That seems to be the price, which to me is insane.
Fucking insane.
And I think Randle's a better player. And Randle, I think, is a better player on the Knicks, right? Forget the spacing and all. I mean, I think DJ Ace, I don't know what he goes by now on Twitter, but DJ from Knicks Film School said, Randle, I think, has an A- in off-ball gravity. So despite the fact that he's not a great 3-point shooter, teams don't want to give him that shot. I don't know how much that off-ball gravity number, and this is B-ball index, by the way. I don't know how much that off-ball gravity statistic takes into account the gravity gets in the paint as opposed to a player, which may not be as useful as when he's out there. But we've seen it. We've seen that teams are not just going to let Randle shoot. And when you don't let him shoot, he's very dangerous. It's just tough because I think that because of the way he plays and how paint-oriented he is, it's tough to fit him with most good teams because most good teams have a high-level guard they want to have that paint free for. even the Celtics, right? They forget Tatum. They wanted the paint free for Derek White. They go 5 out. Obviously, the Mavs want it for Luka and Kyrie. So paint bound wing forward types are a little bit, or wing big type, unless you're Jokic, is a little bit tough to fit around. But it's also very valuable what he does, right? He gets 2 guys to him. He is a magnet for attention. It is very tough. So I think that if the Knicks were to trade Randle, they wouldn't get as much as a 2-time All-NBA player is worth. Should be 3-time if he didn't get hurt next year. But I also think it's a lot higher than most Knicks fans suggest. I want to throw this to you. If the Knicks were to make a Randle trade, because I do think this, right? Like all of this other talk about, well, we can add another guard, we can add Alex Caruso. If Randle is your guy, that works. And if Randle isn't your guy as the number 2, then it doesn't work. You can get another guard. If Randle is still gonna, would you agree with that? If we can get the best version of that backup guard you want. And if Randle is not a good number 2,
we had it, so we already know it's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, I would argue this team is better. We didn't have OG last year. I think if we had OG even with last year's team, we beat the Heat. But
I just don't think you're not going to win with your second option pissing and shitting themselves. It's just not possible. You can't.
And he was hurt.
Yes, I agree. He's hurt. I'm not. We don't need to. We all know what the circumstances were. I'm just saying.
Yeah. So it's either Randle is that guy or isn't. So all of these other moves are somewhat ancillary to that. So who would, if you are, I would imagine that you are maybe 50-50 on this, but 55-45 towards Randle isn't that guy. Is that fair to say, Shwin?
Yeah, I would probably say even stronger than that. I might say 70-30, 65-35. But I don't see a move that's available for them that.
So I'm going to throw out a couple
rolling
players.
The dice on him.
A couple players, you're going to allow a couple of them, but for so there is a player in Minnesota who made the Western Conference Finals, plays the same position, shoots better, went to the same college.
No.
So what? No. So Cat had some good performance. Cat has a better playoff record than Randle. Is it the contract? If Cat had the same contract as Randle, would you not?
The contract, I don't think he's that good. I think you're gonna have to give up picks to.
Do you think he's better than Randle?
No.
In the playoffs?
I mean, I've seen it, but he was terrible in the playoffs prior to this season.
I mean, he had more good performances than Randle has.
I don't know. I don't agree with this. I think actually people are forgetting this. Like Randle had like a couple decent games. He had a couple really solid games against Miami.
So he had his game 1 against Cleveland.
Game 2 against Miami. His game 5 against Miami. His game 1 against Cleveland, which he didn't shoot the ball well, but I thought he played well in that game. And game 5 against Cleveland when he got hurt, before he got hurt, he was fucking cooking them. He was destroying them. He was dominant. He was shitting on them. So I think people go overboard with we've never seen him have a good game in the playoffs. That's just not true. And I'm not I've been as critical of him as anybody even after last. I was shit on him after last year's playoffs. So this is not me pretending. Oh, actually, his resume is really good. No, but he actually has had some good games. It's okay to say that. We can just admit no, actually, we have seen him have good games.
Which makes his what was his best true shooting? I don't think he's hit over 55, has he, for a playoff game? I mean, which is kind of. I know true shooting is just for the playoffs, but it's pretty damning.
This is game 2 against Miami. He shot 8 of 18 from the field. He had 25 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists.
They must have had a bunch of free throws. So I would imagine
6 free throws. So 25 points, 18 shots, 12 rebounds, 8 assists. It's hard for me to not call that a good game. It's plus 14 in the game. Game 5 against Miami. He went 7 of 13 from the field, 4 of 7 from 3, 6 of 10 from the free throw line. He had 24 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds. Again, I'm not acting like these are amazing performances or something, but
the Cat has been. That Cat has had a lot more of those than him, and he's had some pretty great performances.
I mean, if you want to waste the next 10 minutes arguing with me about Cat, go for it. I'll just let you can just talk for 10 minutes.
I mean, is it fair to say that Cat is more proven as a playoff player than Julius? If you're gonna say no,
it's like comparing fucking shit to piss. So yeah, if you would rather piss yourself than shit yourself, sure. Yeah, Cat's been better. Great. Let's throw a fucking parade for him.
Would you say he's a better floor spacer and defender than Randle?
Floor spacer, sure. Defender, no.
Really?
I don't know what is the reasoning for saying he's a like.
No,
What
he was the four on the best defensive team in the league, and
Wow.
he's bigger.
Randle was a starting four for the best defensive team in the league in the month of January. Probably would have been. He was the best. He was the four on a number 3. What was it? Number 3 rated defensive team in 2020, 2021. He was a starting four on a team that fucking finished 11. Like, I'm sorry, that shit does not move me. But
Cat is also longer, bigger, probably reasonably close to as mobile.
Just finish all your Cat arguments. I'm gonna zone out while you do this.
Your Cat, you play devil's advocate.
I'm never gonna agree on this. I'm never going to be like, oh, actually, you know what? I see the light now. Let's trade for Cat. I'm enough. Enough with this shit. The guy, he did nothing for when this is a guy. Okay, let's put the fucking cards on the table, right? You can throw all the fucking numbers you want at me, all his floor spacing, 40% from 3, blah blah blah, all this fucking shit. Oh, he was the starting 4 on the best defensive team in basketball. Oh my god, let me fucking blow him for that. You can do all that bullshit you want, okay? I'm not paying a guy $49 million and then 53 and then 57 and $61 million over the next 4 years who does nothing. For all his great offense, go look up the Minnesota Timberwolves offense over the last 4 years. If you're a great offensive player, your team should not consistently be mediocre offenses. And it's not like he's not playing with a bunch of fucking bums, okay? Anthony Edwards is a pretty good player last time I checked.
Conley's a great player.
If Julius Randle, if you just swap Julius Randle and Cat, okay, you just swap them, and the Timberwolves offense just goes nowhere. It stays exactly how it is. Do you think people would blame Julius Randle for that? Do you think they'd be like, man, he's just not giving us the juice that maybe they thought he was going to give him?
No.
I 100% think that would happen. And I think that would happen. If you get Cat and your offense is basically the same thing where, great, he's a great floor spacer, but you still have not a single fucking guy on this team other than Jalen Brunson who can create offense, who fucking cares? Honestly. Who fucking cares? You can have, I'm not, obviously he's much better than Steve fucking Novak. But if you have guys, if you surround one guy that can create with a bunch of guys who cannot create, you are not a contender.
Cat can post up.
No, he can't. He can't create. He cannot create at a high level.
If he was just a shooter, then he would be Steve.
He cannot create at a high level. If he could create at a high level, their offense would be. I think they've had one top 10 offensive finish. Sorry, 2 in his entire career. Both of them were when Tom Thibodeau was head coach in their team, and one of them came with Jimmy Butler. That was the last time. Since then, not a single one of the Timberwolves teams.
So no team with Ant has finished in the top 10.
Yes, and that's why I think the Ant hype has been overboard. But
also the Cat should be able to do that, even if you think the Ant hype is overboard.
I think top 10 is I'm not fine. You can't give me top 5, top 3. Fine, top 10 is not asking a lot. I don't think that's asking a lot. That's hey man, you're supposed to be. He called himself right. Oh, I'm the best shooter of all. I'm the best big man shooter. Whatever the fuck he said of all time.
Is he?
Yeah, no, Dirk is better than him. People are gonna talk about me revolutionizing the game. If you're a dude like that,
you better have top 10.
I'm sorry. I don't really care about your individual numbers. Then what are you doing for your team when you're on the floor? Is your team's offense so much better than it is when you're off of it? And when you are on it, are they a top 10 offense? I don't know, man. I don't know.
That's fair. So we move from Cat. I do agree with you. I would not trade Julius for Cat. It seems very slightly little plus at best. I do, but if Cat was playing the 5, it'd be different. But Cat's not playing the 5, so I don't even know if the spacing is that much better. And
by the way, for whatever it's worth, this year in the playoffs, they were minus 4.4 points per 100 possessions worse with him on the floor offensively, and they were 8.2 points per 100 possessions worse with him on the floor defensively.
They were 13 points worse.
Minus 12.7 per 100 possessions with Karl-Anthony Towns on the floor.
That's not what you want.
I'm sorry. Cat seems like a great guy. I feel really bad for him. He's gone through a lot. Seems like he's grown from it. I am so fucking out. I never want to see Cat on this team. I think trading for him would be a really poor decision. I think his contract sucks. I think there's a pretty good chance I think there's a pretty fucking good chance you'll get Julius Randle to extend this summer on a deal that's fucking 55, 60% of what Cat's contract is over the next 3 or 4 years. That's what I think.
Okay.
And at that point, I don't think no fucking way Cat's production makes up for that. Like, there's no way. Even if you're like Cat's a better offensive player, fine. He's 35 to 40% better.
Well, it would also be the amplifying effect on Brunson, and not just.
Brunson seems to play pretty well with Julius. I don't know. I don't think the issue so much is Brunson playing off of Julius. I think the issue is Julius playing off of Brunson, which is a separate thing. That's a separate thing. And I don't think, as great as Cat has been as a 3-point shooter, he's not really been a great pick and pop has not really been his thing. He's like more of like if he's open spot up type dude, he'll do that, but he's not really a pick and pop guy. And he's never really gotten a lot of volume up from 3 last time I checked. I can pull that up now. But for his career, I mean, fuck his career. We can just look at his last 3 years? Last 3 years. 7.0, 8.1, 8.0. That's all 3-point attempts per 100 possessions. This is a guy, the greatest shooting big man ever. I'm sorry. Like, you're not getting the volume up from me to give a shit, man. Like, it's just
that's half DiVincenzo. It's half DiVincenzo.
Yeah, it's half DiVincenzo. I mean, I bet Julius has comparable ones over the last 3 years. If not, I mean, I'm sure it was higher in 22, 23. Last 3 years for Julius. This is just threes. 7.7, 11.5, 7.5. So,
the percentages probably weren't as good.
Yeah, they're definitely not as good as Cat. But volume that's so significant. If his volume is that.
If you're talking about the effect on other players, then yeah, that's the big.
So, I mean, you'd be betting, okay, he's going to take way more threes here. His defense is actually good, which I just don't believe at all. And he's worth paying. Like, I really believe there's a chance Julius would take like a 4-year, $140 million extension. Because I think he wants to extend. I think he wants to extend. I don't think he wants to wait till free agency. I think he wants that security. And so I think you have leverage. And, his max contract is 4,181. If he takes something like 4,140, 4,150, I mean, that's so much better than Cat's contract. And I just don't think Cat gives you the production to justify the difference. I don't. And especially with the new cap rules and aprons and all that shit, that stuff matters a lot, even more than it ever has before. So yeah, fuck Cat. That's my takeaway from all this.
Fuck Cat. You would trade Randle for Booker, right?
Yeah.
But Booker, you don't anticipate. Would you trade? If it had happened, would you trade Randle for Donovan Mitchell?
Randle for Donovan Mitchell?
Yeah.
No, I think we'd be. I would have to. I'd have to have I have to know we're going to do a lot more than that because I just think that team would be super imbalanced.
So then the other question is, there's 2 other avenues, right? The other avenue is, one, instead of trading Randle for another star on that level, you trade him for a few players who are. For this is that with Hart at the 4, has made.
Who are those players? What team has those players? Give me examples.
If Brooklyn was willing to trade Bridges for a reasonable value, can you trade him for McDaniels in a first? I don't think Minnesota would do that, but maybe you got a third team involved. But if it's available, right? Or let's say something like Pat Williams and Alex Caruso and like a pick.
I mean, you could do that, and I don't think you'd necessarily be worse.
You're just missing a creator, but now you're adding guys.
To me, you're not necessarily worse, but you're still missing that thing. So to me, it's like, okay, you now have a more deep supporting cast, but you're still living in a world where Brunson has to create everything.
But in that world, right? Would they need a star, or do you think
yes.
Star creator next to Brunson? So it's a non-mover then.
The fucking Mavericks need Kyrie next to Luka Doncic. That should tell you everything you need to know about what we need.
That's
what
one
you
team,
need.
right?
That's what you need. That's literally a team that's going to the NBA Finals. If you do not have even Nikola Jokic, who I think is the best player in the world, and I think could retire one day as the greatest offensive player of all time. Like, he needs at least a Jamal Murray.
Dirk didn't have one really, right?
I mean, yeah, and that's an anomaly. I think it's fair to say, and it's also a league that was very, very different.
So they need another star, even if the star isn't as good as Brunson. There is no getting around that.
I don't think there is.
Okay.
I just don't see it.
So then the other pivot, another name that's been brought up, another name that I know you're a huge fan of is Zach LaVine, who has a really big contract.
Okay. Why are we talking about this? Honestly, like, why?
He has a shitty contract, but Chicago might pay you to take him on.
No, they won't.
Or you get neutral value. But I mean, as a third option, because at this point you're talking about putting them next to Randle, and then you could do the Randle for role players trade if you wanted, if the defense was that bad, which
LaVine
it might be.
Sucks. LaVine is a terrible basketball player. So I don't really know why I would want him on my team. I mean, also injury prone.
I'll ask this. Like, in terms of looking at guys, does that factor into you more now with OG being so important? And,
Then what?
Than before, where like now the Knicks Hart is, I don't want to say injury prone, but he has a history of injuries. Do you think that is a thing now where like the Knicks should be avoiding injury prone players, maybe more?
You should always try to avoid injury prone players,
right? But more so than before, even.
Sure, and I also think you should probably avoid ones that have 3 years and $700 bajillion owed to them left on their contract. That's just a rule of thumb I live by.
Last year, LaVine still put up 58 true shooting on.
Wow, great, and they were much better the second he fucking sat.
25 and 4. Well, but there are a lot of mitigating circumstances there. He's been on a shitty team.
Yeah,
he's a year removed from averaging 25, 4 and 4 on 60 true shooting.
I didn't want him then.
He played 77 games that year, 61 true shooting.
Wow, the Bulls should keep this guy. Sounds like a superstar.
So you're completely out there, even if they give us first picks to take him, and we'd have to give up anything important.
How can you be like, we need to compete now, Brunson's the guy, and they're like, well, we're making this trade to get 2 first-round picks, and then we're going to send those out in the future for some guy in the future who we don't know, but trust us.
A lot of people would have said the same about Luka and Kyrie, right? Kyrie was proven next to a superstar. That's
okay,
fine,
but they had to take those risks, one, because they were limited in their assets, and two, because they also, like, it's fair to say, whatever Kyrie's issues are, the concern with him was not, can he play? The concern was, will he play? Will his mental be right?
It's also the question, can he play next to a superstar or something? Which, to your point, has shown that.
Yeah.
And you don't think, is that your biggest question, Zach? Is that you don't think he can do that?
He's just been a fucking loser his entire career, so fuck him. Like, not interested in him. Like, I'm sorry. What have you done in your career? You've done nothing. You've played in 4 playoff games. Cool. Like, I'm good. You're not a role player either. You're not like a guy who is, well, he's just been on shitty teams, not really his fault. No, you're a fucking high usage guy. So yeah, it is your fucking fault. It is your fucking fault if all your teams suck or they're mediocre or they don't do fucking anything. Like, yeah, if your team is more hurt by losing Lonzo Ball than they are from losing you, then you're probably not a star, dude. It's pretty simple. Like, I think
I'm glad you weren't the therapist from Good Will Hunting. It's all your fault. It is your fault. I'm sorry. Our fault.
Yeah, it is his fault. You fucking suck. Like, I don't know what you want me to say. He's not good. Like, if you're good, then you probably would have played more than 4 fucking playoff games. I don't know. Like, I don't think that's that harsh. Sorry. Like, if he was good, there'd probably be a bunch of fucking teams knocking down the door to try to get him, because you can get him in. Oh, wow, we can get this awesome guy for so cheap. How come nobody wants him? I don't know. Seems relevant. There are plenty of desperate fucking teams out there too.
The last guy we'll mention is Durant, who I think you would say is a better player than Randle.
Okay, where are we going with this?
There is a trade out there, Randle for Durant. You wouldn't do that.
No.
But you would say Durant is a better player than Randle.
Yeah.
But you don't like KD.
I would never trade for Kevin Durant. There's no trade in the world I would make for Kevin Durant.
Alonzo Trier and a bag of chips.
I would never want Kevin Durant in my locker room. I would never want him in my locker room. I would never want him in my organization. I would never want to listen to him talk. I would never want to watch him play every night. I would never want to cater to him. I would never want Rich Kleiman and his grubby fucking hands anywhere near this team. Oh, I'm going to run the Knicks one day. Fucking, you couldn't even get your star client to sign with us. Okay, so I don't want anything to do with that loser. I don't want anything to do with his people. I don't want anything to do with his agendas. I don't want anything to do with the boardroom. I don't want anything to do with that because everywhere that guy goes, everybody's miserable all the time. I'm good.
So it's safe to say from both of our standpoints, as much as Randle being the number 2 is an undecided question, one of the options to resolve that by trading him is just not an option right now. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, like Livia Durant does not move me. So no, I just look if there's a trade out there. Look, I'll say this: I feel very confident. I feel very strongly, and I was wrong. I was wrong that trading OG. I did not think it would get the Knicks to this higher level that it did do. I thought that they needed to get a third shot creator more than they needed what OG.
You hated OG. You said he was too boring, man.
I was completely wrong about that. I feel way more strongly about this because I think that you always need 2 guys that can create offense. I mean, almost as a rule of thumb. Yes, you can find examples, like you just brought up, 2011 Mavericks, et cetera, where those things don't apply. But general rule of thumb is you're going to need at least 2 guys that can create offense at a high enough level.
I agree with that. I think they have to be at a starter level, right? Like, let's look at this. I wonder how much they can, because of DiVincenzo being, because in that point, it's like, so does DiVincenzo, is the fact that DiVincenzo is more than 3D at that point just not relevant? Because I feel like it kind of is. And if you have more of those guys, and it's like the Pacers a little bit, right? Like, who on the Pacers was a star level creator?
Siakam.
And
it's also that they play 5 out though. We're not going to play 5 out. That's a huge difference.
So that's fine. But what is, can having a bunch of guys who are not star creators but creator plus?
If you have a 5 out center, sure.
If everyone is Dante,
if you have a 5 out center.
Okay, so if we had a 5 out center, that would change your.
I'm much more willing to hear the argument. Yes.
Okay, that's fair.
But we don't have that, so who cares? Yeah, no, it's pretty simple to me. Like, again, if
at this point on this version of the
Mikal Bridges, if
the
Knicks did trade Julius Randle for Mikal Bridges, my belief is I think they'd be a better regular season team. I think their floor would be higher consistently because Julius is very prone to up and down swings. He's very moody, as we've seen. But I don't think you've raised your playoff ceiling. I don't. Like, I don't think you've become, wow, this team is a contender now. I think you'll.
Yeah, but
I think you'll fool a lot of metrics. I think you'll have a lot of pretty metrics. I think you'll be a top 3 offense. I think you might be the best defensive team in basketball. I think all of the net rating and all those things will look pretty. And then I think you'll go to the playoffs. And then I think you'll play a contender like Boston for the first time. And I think you'll lose. And I think you'll lose in a way that's very, very convincing. And not well, I think you will lose in a very convincing fashion. And we will be sitting here a year from now with the same thing where it's like, well, we need to get a second option next to Jalen Brunson. That's what I think. I'm open to being wrong. But I don't think
I agree with you on that. What I'm also asking this question for is also if Randle is not quite that guy, or if he's somewhere in that gray area between being dog shit and being regular season Julius Randle, how much does it matter that Dante we've seen create? We've seen Deuce create. We've seen Deuce actually be reasonably effective in limited opportunities off pick and roll. If you surround them with enough of those guys, can that mitigate
85-90% of what he's in the regular season? None of this matters. It doesn't matter. Because if Randall's on the floor, you're going to give him a bunch of use.
Yeah, but if you get Donovan Mitchell or someone else, then it also doesn't matter because they're not going to be asked to do that, right? So you're saying that those things are nice to have to compete and be I guess that's what I'm asking. Like, does the fact that Deuce and Dante and all these guys being able to create, Hart can create too, right? So
no, he cannot. No,
They relied on him a lot for offense off the bounce.
Great.
It's not something you want to do, but they can all do a little bit of these things. That's the point. Can you committee that?
No.
Not replace a star, but to augment a guy like Randle or a guy who isn't quite there.
I feel like we're just talking about the same fucking thing over and over again, and I'm telling you exactly what I think. Like,
Which is no.
Like, your second star has to be a second star. Like, there's no fucking way around that. Like, why did Minnesota lose to Dallas? Let me tell you something. It had nothing to do with fucking Rudy Gobert or Jaden McDaniels pissing himself, and he didn't piss himself, or Mike Conley being fucking 58 years old. No, it's that Ant Edwards. It was that Ant Edwards and Cat sucked. That's what it was. And guess what? The game they played well in game fucking 4, they won. Like, your stars have to be stars. And yes, you can get around that. Like, Dallas got around that in the Oklahoma City series because their defense was so good. And also, I mean, look, they got kind of lucky, I think, in terms of, look, I don't want to
Oklahoma City's young, and
and I don't want to take anything away from Dallas because I did think they played really, really well in that series. Their defense has been really good, but yeah, they got a little bit of the rub of the green with Oklahoma City's 3-point shooting. That's cool. Like, that happens. That's variance working in your favor. So it doesn't, not taking away from them. Just saying, like, it even took that, and that's, Kyrie and Luka did not have great series in that game or in that series. But you can't. We've seen and we know that Luka over the course of a playoffs is going to, at some point, is going to get it going, right? We don't know Julius Randle over the course of a playoffs is going to be like, all right, I'm going to have a good game. Then I'm going to have a second good game. Then I'm going to have a third good game. I'm going to have a fourth great game. Then I might have an okay game. But then I'll have he's never had a good series. He has never had a good series. So until we see that, I don't it's hard to just.
But we also can't trade him for anyone who gives you that.
I mean, who was giving us that in that role?
KD.
Yeah, I explained. I think I've explained 50 times why I don't want to do that.
All right. So I guess absent those moves, it's just adding on the fringes, right? Is that what you expect the Knicks to do?
I think so. I'm less. I think everybody just assumes every summer they're going to make a huge fucking move. I just don't really think that move is out there for them this summer. And I think for them,
the extensions of Brunson and Randle looming, that this is the summer to do that.
I would assume that there's ways for them to figure it out down the line. I don't subscribe to the idea that, well, this is it. Got to do it now or nothing's ever going to happen. I think that's bullshit.
But this is a more opportune time, right?
Well, it depends. I mean, opportune only matters as far as what's out there. So if Devin Booker's out there, sure. Take a fucking swing. Go for it. I'm happy.
Mitchell would be the other one, right?
Maybe. If he leaves. He might not want to leave, though.
LeBron?
He's not leaving LA.
My
also, Kevin Durant's not available. Kevin Durant is not available. Like, he's not available. So that's just what it is. They're not giving up on that team after a year. It's just not going to happen.
I do think LeBron's going to be in the East this next year.
Yeah,
I think he's going to be sharing. He's going to play across the room, Jalen Hurts. That's my bold take. I think we're going to beat him anyway. All right. What about this game you wanted to play?
All right, let's play the game. Here's the game. Here are the 6 teams that have enough cap space as is to sign Isaiah Hartenstein to a 4-year, $90 million contract. This is what I think it would need to be for him to consider leaving New York. That would start at $20.9 million this season, for next season. These are the 6 teams. Pistons, they have $64.4 million in cap space. 76ers, $61.3 million. The Magic, $49.5 million. Utah Jazz, $38.1 million. Oklahoma City, $35.3 million. San Antonio Spurs, $21.3 million. And by the way, these numbers are all from Keith Smith. So if they're wrong or you think they're wrong, go yell at him in his mentions. He will probably tell you to shut the fuck up. He does it in a very fun way. Good guy, Keith. He also mentions in here, Hornets are a swing team. If Miles Bridges leaves, I project them to have $29.8 million in cap space. Okay. Let's go team by team. Do you think the Pistons are a serious suitor for Isaiah Hartenstein?
No. 1, I don't think he would take them very seriously. And 2, are they just punting on Jalen Duren? I don't think they can do that, really.
It's a new GM. It's our new president, new GM will be there. So
I don't think he's very good. I do think we should. I wish we had brought up Isaiah Stewart when we were talking about the Knicks, but no, I don't see the Pistons as a threat.
okay. Second, I think this one we don't need to have a very long conversation about this. 76ers, $61.3 million.
No, you can back up Embiid for 61 points.
Okay. Number 3, Orlando Magic, $49.5 million.
Wendell starts for them, right?
Wendell started for them. They don't really have a true backup 5 right now. They were using Mo Wagner. He wasn't great for them in that series against Cleveland. He's kind of hit.
Well educated though.
What a fucking weird. I'm like, he just doesn't shoot threes half the time now. I don't understand it. It's like, dude, it's like your whole fucking thing. It's like supposed to be your whole fucking thing. So you shoot threes. Weird career he's had. But yeah, so they have $49.5 million.
All I know is I rooted for him once to beat Jalen Brunson and Dante DiVincenzo, and he lost. I would not expect Orlando to do that. I don't think Isaiah's not going anywhere to be a backup. Would I take him over Wendell Carter? Yes, but that doesn't move. Like that's not what really Orlando needs. Is they need shooting. I would expect Orlando to make a play for Trae Young this summer. But I don't even think they should do that. I mean, they have Cole Anthony under contract. That sounds wild to say about Trae Young, but I like Cole Anthony a lot. So,
for what it's worth, Wendell Carter started 48 games. Goga Bitadze started 33. I'm not sure who started. I think Moritz Wagner.
Also,
Wagner,
if they got Isaac's health, I think he can play the 5 a little bit, right? So
yeah, they used him with the 5 a little bit, and I think they saw enough from him that they still value him because he has a non-guaranteed contract for next year. Like I'm pretty confident they're going to guarantee that. So which is why I expect that cap number to come down. By the way, I think that he's calculating that with them potentially not having guaranteed him.
Carter
I don't know
or
that for
Isaac?
Sure. Isaac.
They're guaranteed
I could be wrong
that.
Yeah, I could be wrong that he might have included that.
I mean, he was OG level when he played. It's just injuries.
Yeah. So I don't think the Magic are a serious suitor for him. I just have a hard time believing that. I don't know. That dynamic seems weird. Like to me, as good as Hartenstein is, neither Paolo nor Franz, and then you get to the guards, Suggs, or they started Cole, they started Gary Harris, they started whoever. I don't think they're dynamic. None of them are. That's just not a spread offense. It's not dynamic.
Do you think they throw quickly a bag?
No. And I just think that you're not going to get the best of Isaiah Hartenstein with a lineup like that, where it's not spread, and you can't kind of let him do that ancillary playmaking and ball handling and facilitating. I just don't think it would be a good fit. Maybe they would miscalculate that.
Why don't they go for quickly? Because he would seem to fit pretty well.
I don't think you want to play restricted free agency if you're them.
Because that would tie up your cap space too.
Yeah, you have to wait, and then if they match, you're fucked. So you'd have to make an offer that you feel pretty confident that they're not going to match, which means that it's probably an offer that at least initially sticker shock people will be like, holy shit, that's a fucking massive overpay. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe quickly will prove that he actually is a star guard, and you're right, but I can't see that being their big play. I don't think so. I think they'll make a big play for Malik Monk.
I would rather make a big play for Quickly personally, but
I would too, but I just don't think that he's not going to leave. Toronto's going to match. Again, you don't do the OG trade and not match on Quickly. They clearly probably have a very good idea of what his demands are, what his market is, what they'd have to pay to give him, and I don't think I don't even think he's going to hit the market. I think he will get an extension done as soon as free agency is open.
One of those 1201 contracts. All right, what's next on the list?
All right, I think this one's pretty straightforward. Utah Jazz, $38.1 million. I don't see it.
I kind of like it though.
They have Walker Kessler. And they're not close to competing. They're so far away from competing.
But do you think they're just not going to use the cap space? Because Hartenstein is still young, right? He's 26.
You could not. I mean, they don't need to use the cap space. Like they can create cap space moving forward next year if they wanted to.
Do you think they're trying to take on contracts instead? I mean, what do you do? How do you weaponize that cap space?
I don't know what they're going to do, but I do not think their big move is going to. They're also paying John Collins a fuck ton of money too, right? So you've got Collins, you've got Markkanen, Walker Kessler. Like your front court as is pretty crowded. I don't see it. I'd be shocked. I'd be really shocked if they're like, man, let's fuck over Walker Kessler, who we presumably love.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense.
Tommy D's favorite prospect in the draft. So
wait, is that real?
yeah.
That's okay. All right. All right. Now we get the 2. Actually, I just think it's 1, and I'm not that worried about them, but we'll see. The Oklahoma City Thunder, they have $35.3 million in cap space.
Yeah, they're contender. I like the fit with Chet. I think for being of the fives who don't shoot, Hartenstein is the best guy in terms of allowing offense to breathe, because of, I think that floater is pretty important. We talked about it before. I think it gives you some rebounding and rim protection that Chet, he's like the perfect kind of big to put next to Chet. Is that what Oklahoma City is going to prioritize though? Or do they make a run at like Paul George? I would anticipate the latter, because they probably have more need for like that kind of a wing. They tried to get Hayward, that didn't work out. So I don't think that would be at the top of their priority list, but it's a fit and they have the money. So I mean, how much? I'll ask you this. This is something that's speculated a lot, and I have no idea how much it matters. I've never dated a supermodel or married one myself. Do you think it matters that Isaiah Hartenstein is married to a supermodel and is living in New York and moved with her to Oklahoma City?
Yeah, I think it matters. He's married to her, so it's obviously some type of commitment.
But I mean, for her too, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. We're in a digital world now, and I am a digital girl. Would it, how much does that matter? I think people are speculating on that when it comes to him re-signing in New York, given that none of the other suitors seem to be from big, media entertainment markets.
Does he have other suitors? I'm not really convinced of this.
Well, Oklahoma City would be one, potentially.
Again, I'm just not really seeing a real credible link. Like everything I've
seen. Have cap space, and would you agree he's a good basketball fit there?
Yes, but I don't think they think of Tim as a good basketball fit there.
You think they just want to be 5 out, period?
That's what I think, yeah. I think they are convinced that's the way forward. Maybe they're right. Maybe that is the way forward. I don't know. I tend to think that steadfastly believing there's only one way to play is wrong. But
you're committing to him as a primary part of how you'd play. You are changing at that point, right?
Well, and not just that. Like we know that Chet is good at the 5. Whatever his issues were against Dallas or in general, blah blah blah. We know he's good at the 5. Just finished his first year in the league. I mean, it's technically his second, but it's his first. If you pay Hartenstein, you're presumably going to move Chet to the 4. So you are changing how you play drastically if you do that. And that just seems not in line with what Presti does. Like, I don't think he would do that. I think he sees SGA, Jalen Williams, Chet. He's like, okay, these 3 guys, I know they're dudes, and they're key components of how we play, and I know how I want to use them. Like, I mean, again, I know that, and this is actually truly just like hindsight kind of GMing. But if they had traded for PJ Washington instead of Dallas, I think they're probably in the finals right now. And that's exactly the type of player they need. Now, obviously, PJ's been much better than anybody even thought he could be in Dallas. He's hitting threes at a high level. He's defending better than he ever has, which is, I mean, if I was a Hornet fan, I'd probably be super fucking annoyed.
Well, maybe they should expand on that and see what the common denominator is there.
Yeah, right. But yeah, like I think they need a power forward. I think they need more size. Yeah, I mean, honestly, Randle would be great there.
They're not going to trade Jalen Williams, and I don't want anyone else. So,
well, they don't need to trade Jalen Williams. Jalen Williams can obviously play the 3.
No, I'm saying I would never, if I was a Knicks, I would never trade Randle unless I'm getting Jalen Williams back in that trade.
Yeah, I mean, they don't really have anything aside from that. But the point is that I think they're more focused on, okay, we don't want, I don't think they want to make Chet a 4. And SGA is their lead guard, initiator, whatever the fuck however you want to phrase it. Jalen's their second guy. They just need to get more dudes that fit in around those guys and make their lives easier and do things that they don't do well. That's what they need.
Do you think that's a potential ostensible? I don't think that's a word. Potential Mikal Bridges destination?
Maybe. I don't think. Who the hell knows what the Nets are going to do? The Nets don't seem to know what the Nets are going to do. So I have no idea. I have no clue. I don't know.
Yeah, they just want to breathe a sigh of relief at some point. But sorry, brief tangent. So just because we're talking about the Thunder and they're a forever have been rebuilding team with 1 million picks, I think there's been reports that Şengün may be on the market. Is that a player you'd have any interest in? Especially if the Knicks were going to lose Hartenstein or to have to pay him a ton of money.
I'd be interested. I'd also be very worried about that.
There's no way you go with Randle in a Şengün trade, even if they give us picks, right?
Feel like that defeats the purpose.
Well, is it fair to say he's a better defender than Randle?
I have no idea how to judge that. I'm going to be honest. I didn't watch the Rockets
enough. He plays
enough.
the 5, yeah.
I know he plays a 5. The Rockets have a bunch of fucking long wings and stuff to protect him. I don't know. I think it's tough.
What if you get Tari with him?
With who? With Şengün?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I just have a hard. I don't know how you sell that to your guys. Hey, we know you were on the cusp of competing. We traded Julius Randle for Şengün, who's going to start now, and Tari Eason, who is a nice player and piece and has promise, but has done very little so far in his time in the league of note at a high level.
How much do you think that plays a factor? Like Randall's kind of, bankability, like what he has in the bank with this team, and because DeRozan got traded, right? I mean, my feeling is that Randle is going to be the DeRozan of this team. Eventually, he is going to have to.
Yeah, but he got traded for Kawhi.
But DeRozan got traded. DeRozan was a very important player to that Toronto buildup, which Randle has been. He has been as core as anyone else. It feels to me like that is somehow at some point, 1 year, 2 years down the line, that's going to happen. But I have no idea how that works in locker rooms and front offices in terms of that cachet that the player. Like Kyle Lowry didn't talk to him.
I mean, it would basically have to
year,
be.
I think.
But the comparison is crazy because, again, you got traded for Kawhi. Kawhi had already been a Finals MVP. Had already played
it. It's a Kawhi deal, but I'm saying that
but that's what it'd have to be.
But the Raptors are still pissed, right? Like Lowry didn't talk to Masai. Like they were all so. But that's I don't know. I think
but then Kawhi probably showed up at training camp and they're probably like, "Oh yeah, this is fine. It's cool. Like we're good." And they also got Danny Green in that trade. That trade was ridiculous. I can't believe I don't know how the fuck Masai pulled that off. But like
he lost him after a year. That was kind of part of it.
But it was good. It was worth it. I mean, DeRozan sucks.
It was worth it with a little bit of luck. It's worth it.
It was always worth it just to get off DeRozan. But like, I don't know. Şengün and Tari Eason is not that at all. Like I don't know how you sell that. I don't forget the fucking players. I don't know how you sell that to Tibbs. Hey Tibbs.
Oh, he's gonna hate Şengün.
Şengün
did improve as defender, but
I think he'd hate Eason more than Şengün.
Yeah,
I think Şengün
fucking brain farts.
Yeah, but Şengün at least like clearly his offense is amazing and he showed a lot of growth defensively. Like there's at least a lot there that's established at a high enough level where you'd be like, oh, okay, I can work with this. And there's just a high baseline. With Eason, he'd be like, wait, you can't shoot. You're a fucking space cadet half the time. And you're he's been kind of injury prone, right? Like he missed fucking 50 games or something this year. Like, I don't know. That'd be a really hard sell. That'd be I would not want to be the guy trying to pitch that to Tibbs. Hey, so we traded Julius, but don't worry, we got you Tari Eason. He'd be like, fucking Tari who? Did you get me?
Brunson and roll would be unguardable, but I agree with you that it just doesn't seem to be in the cards. Who's your last pick or last team?
The last one, excuse me. Last one is the Spurs at $21.3 million.
Do you think he fits with Wemby?
No, I think Wemby's a 5. Like, he played his best basketball of the year once they moved him to 5. That's what he is.
But they
He's
didn't have
7'5".
5 as good as Hartenstein.
He's 7'5". I think you're wasting time if you don't just like if you want to go get a good backup 5, go for that.
I mean,
That's fine.
the Rockets are the same thing with Samson, and like there just aren't that many tall
Is it
guys.
1983?
But that was a more modern team, though, the Rockets.
Was it?
So,
I mean,
yeah,
even
I mean, Samson was taking threes. Shaquem used to
how
shoot
many
from the
threes
perimeter,
do you think Ralph Sampson took?
probably like 10. But he used to play from the perimeter a lot. They used to have him out there.
Ralph Sampson took for his career.
More bumps than he took more bumps than threes. I will acknowledge that.
He took 58 threes for his career. His highest in a season was 15.
Yeah, but he, I mean, how many middies did he take, right? Like he was playing out there. My point is, right? Like if you have a 5 that good, he would. I mean, in terms of Wemby has had injury issues. You have a guy next to him to deal with some of that. Who can? I mean, and I like Hartenstein playing like Boris Diaw would be awesome. You have a coach that can kind of unleash some of that. Like if I was the Spurs, I would like that.
Wemby played 71 games this year.
I mean, who's the right kind of 4 to put next to? He played 74 games, really.
71.
I
played and started in 71 games.
Spend too much time with Omar. Excuse me. It's still a risk, though, right? When you look at his body size.
But you're dumping significant cap space into a position that presumably within a year or 2 years is going to be Wemby's full time.
Is that what you want him to do, though? You want to do you want Wemby to put on much weight?
Yes, I want him to play the 5. I'm so over this whole thing of like, well, what if he's this is the fucking thing we do with Kristaps. You're fucking 7'3". Get your fucking ass at the 5. Are you fucking shitting me? Like, oh, you don't want to. I don't want to. Like, I don't like playing the 4. I don't like playing the 5. It's not very physical. Fuck you. Get your fucking ass in the gym.
But you're also taking away one of his biggest strengths, which is his quickness. His
how am I taking that
ability.
away? How am I taking any of that away?
If you're putting him in the paint.
No, I'm playing him at the 5. That does not mean I have to have him in the paint. If anything, that's the opposite.
So you think that would keep them from signing Harden? But also in 2 years, you could sign Hartenstein for 4 years. In 2 years, if Wemby's ready to take that on, but you're giving yourself multiple avenues there. And in the short term, you now have a great rebounder to play next to Wemby. Also, another great passer, by the way, for Wemby, who's a good cutter. I mean, imagine the kind of passes that Hartenstein would throw to Wemby. I think they could have some really good synergy. We haven't seen that kind of big man tandem since the Kings, I guess. Brad Miller and Weber.
Just have a hard time believing a team that's been this kind of. They've been pretty fucking patient since they've started nuking this team. Just have a hard time believing they're going to be like, you know what? It's time. It's time.
So if you're setting odds on these 6 teams and the Knicks, what are you setting them at?
I think I would say the Magic are the one team that I could still see giving them a back, just because they have $49.5 million in cap space. They don't have to pay Paolo for 2 years. They would still be under the first apron even after they extend Suggs and Franz Wagner this summer. They could probably move off of guys like Cole Anthony and stuff like that. They have pathways to still have cap space and be flexible. And what would be valuable for them is they would also be hurting a conference competitor they'd probably look at the Knicks as a team that, yeah, they finished above us this year. Yeah, they're better than us right now. But we can be better than them next year. And if they get Hartenstein, I mean, obviously we don't know for sure. I mean, then the Knicks would have to do other things and we'd see what they do. But I mean, it would definitely hurt the Knicks. It would definitely hurt the Knicks to lose Isaiah Hartenstein. It would be a huge loss to me. I love Mitch. I think Mitch is awesome. Mitch is not dependable. You cannot depend on Mitch to get through an 82-game regular season. We've seen that prove itself.
Well, even in the playoffs,
yeah,
there's you take stuff off the table on offense, can't shoot free throws, probably isn't quite as versatile as Hartenstein. I did want to ask this because you brought up Embiid, kind of beating up on him a little bit. Was there anything in the playoffs that gave you, and honestly, not just Embiid, Miles Turner had a great series too, and maybe Hartenstein was banged up. Whether or not the Knicks re-sign him, were there more questions raised for you in the playoffs about Hartenstein than maybe before?
Not really. No. I think he had the hardest job of pretty much anybody other than Brunson on the team for the last 4 fucking months of the season or whatever it was.
Do you think it was more wear and tear?
Yeah, I just think you're asking a lot of the guy. Hey, anchor the defense. I mean, for 3 months of that, or sorry, for like
he was also their secondary creator a lot.
Well, for 2.5 months of that, you're also like, hey, you're going to be the starting 5. The next tallest guy in the lineup is fucking Josh Hart. Like it's or your 4 is Precious Achua, and Precious, for all the things that he's good at, he's so bad at the 4. He's a space cadet there. His rebounding somehow is worse at the 4, which makes no fucking sense to me. It is what it is. Anyway, the point is, like, you were asking him to do a lot. We had like the fucking Hartenstein and the Munchkins lineup, which was awesome. But again, you're asking him to do a lot to kind of keep your defense together. And as you mentioned, offensively, we were a lot of Brunson's usage was getting derived off of playing off of Hartenstein. So you are just it's not just 30 minutes. Like his 30 minutes is very different than a Mitchell Robinson 30 minutes. Because a Mitchell Robinson 30 minutes, he's not doing anything on offense other than when the shot goes up. Obviously, he's maybe the best offensive rebounder in basketball. It's not to diminish it. I'm just saying he has no responsibilities when we're actually in possession of the ball. It's a massive difference. Isaiah Hartenstein was asked to do a lot, and I just think he ran out of gas. As a lot of those guys did. I mean, I thought Brunson ran out of gas too, and it's cool that, on the podcast he said, I hate that people are making excuses for us and shit. It's a cool sentiment, buddy, but
that's what he's supposed to say. But
yeah, that's what you're supposed to say. I don't believe it. Sorry. Like, your entire team died, and you looked like you were ready to fucking collapse throughout the last 2 games of that Pacers series. It is what it is. You lost, so you got to own that. But, like, I think he learned. I think he ran out of gas. I thought Hartenstein ran out of gas. And we even saw in game 4, like, Josh Hart had fucking nothing in that game. They showed him on the sideline. He looked like he was about fucking, he had literally had nothing. He had no juice. The entire team didn't have juice that game, right? So I think it's obvious what happened there, and Hartenstein was definitely part of that. The Embiid stuff definitely is concerning because I don't think that was fatigue related. I just think Embiid was a really bad matchup for him, and he just couldn't seem to come to grips with him. It almost seemed like he was so focused on not fouling. I actually think he got into this a little bit too much in the playoffs, and maybe part of it was Mitch being, however, whatever percent he was playing at, I don't know. But like, it felt like he was very, very focused on not fouling, especially when he picked up a couple of stupid fouls early in the series against Philly.
He showed up against Turner too, I think.
Yeah, where he was so focused on that he played with no physicality on defense, wasn't getting into guys when they were like facing up on him and stuff like that. And that's a little concerning. It's also why, like, unless there's a good trade out there where Mitch is returning back a piece that is of comparable value, whether it be at center or another position, I would want Mitch back because I think for that matchup, and that's a matchup, look, you need to obviously be considerate of that matchup if you're playing in the Eastern Conference. You need Mitch for that matchup. To me, he's a guy that's given Embiid problems even going back to his rookie season. So he's just a good matchup for Embiid, and that's really, really valuable. And Hartenstein isn't. Maybe that changes. Maybe he figures it out. But for right now, based on what we know, what we've seen, I think we have to go with that's very much TBD.
Cool. And what do you expect the Knicks to do in the draft?
I think they'll take 2 players. I don't expect them to pick them at any of the picks they currently have. I assume they'll move down or they'll do a lot of I feel like they'll do a lot of things. I could see them even packaging 24 and 25 maybe to move up, or 24 and 38 to move up, whatever it is, and then sitting at 25. But I do think they will consolidate. I do think they'll take 2 players. I think they want 2 players. I would suggest that for them moving down with one of the picks and then moving out, like if they can move down from 24 and get like, I don't know, 29 and a high second or something, and then trade out from 25 and 38, I think they would love to do that. I think that would be ideal for them. I don't know if that will happen, but I think that's what they'll want to do. I think they'll want to reduce kind of their cap the cap hit of whoever they pick. But I do think they'll come out with 2 guys.
While kind of having that draft capital in the future rather than now.
Yeah, like I could see them being like, because it always looks bad to trade the 25th pick in the draft for like 2 seconds or something.
Well, especially when you're hitting home runs at 25 every time,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, maybe they should trade 24, not 25. But like I could see them thinking, well, 2 seconds in the future, kind of like they did when they traded out. Then they did all the trades during the 2021 draft, right? Where they was like, they traded out 19 for a future protected first. They traded 21 to move down 4 spots to get 2 seconds. Like, I think they view those future picks as valuable because they're just not actualized players yet.
They're Schrodinger's 11th graders.
Yes. And if they can still come out of this draft with 2 guys that they valued and that they would have taken at 24 or 25 if they had no other options, but to stick there, I think they'll be happy with that. I think they prefer that.
Yeah, it makes sense. I tend to agree. I think they need at least a rookie contract or 2. I think given their development record, it makes sense to get someone back in there. And I think given if there's a position where I think there will be some interesting guys in the 20s, Kalel Ware, for example, is a guy that Prez just doesn't seem to love, but every time I watch the guy, I love the tools, love the skill set, love the potential. And especially look at their track record with bigs, with Tibbs. I could see them at least taking a big as maybe a guy, even if you're not trading Mitch, as somebody else in the pipeline, because I think one thing we learned is that Jericho Sims is probably what he is, which is a fringe NBA player, but not that third guy.
Yeah, and the Knicks also have Precious, who will be a restricted free agent. So who knows what happens with him? Maybe they keep him, maybe not.
But I expect them to take a pipeline big, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think they should. It's definitely a position where you can usually unearth guys and find value in places that you don't always find value.
Cool.
Yep. All right. That's going to be it for us today. Stacy, let the people know they can find you and plug anything that you'd like to plug.
You can find me at Stacy Patton 89 on X.com, I guess now we're calling it. And shout out Team India, 1-0 so far, beat Ireland in the 2020. If you are in the New York area, they're playing Pakistan on Sunday. It should be a big match. So if you're not going to the match, avoid LIRR and subways in Queens at all costs. And if you are going to the match, let's get it, baby.
Yeah, good luck to you. Who wins the finals? Prediction.
Cricket?
No.
Oh, well, I was gonna say India, but clearly you're you've gone full chicken tikka masala. I think it's Boston. Yeah, Boston at 6.
Yeah. I also think it'll be Boston in 6. The Porzingis thing is a little weird because he obviously hasn't played since whatever it was, game 2, I think, of the first round. It's just not. I don't know. Not that worried about it. I think if they had less time between series, then it'd be a lot bigger of a concern for me. But I assume that they've probably done a pretty decent job of ramping him up in practice, and they just have such strong players 1 to 4 aside from him. So, yeah, I just think it'll be. I think they'll edge it. But if they don't, it wouldn't be the hugest surprise. Obviously, Luka and Kyrie are capable of going off.
Would Luka be the greatest Mav ever if he wins?
I mean, that's not that absurd to say he would be.
Wow, you're a big Dirk guy.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're projecting like him to kind of be as what he has been for the next 5, 6, 7 years, and then he already gets a ring at 25, like, I don't know, that's not that crazy to me. So I don't think he would be the best Maverick ever right now, but I think he would be pretty optimistic. Yeah, you'd be pretty optimistic about like, well, this he's going to be. But yeah, I don't know. I
He's just lucky Brunson didn't stay the Mavs. He would have been the best Maverick.
I think as good as Dallas has been, and they've beaten really good teams. Especially, I don't care about the Clippers. To me, the Clippers were never serious, so whatever. I had the Mavericks pretty heavy.
They have an HBO show coming out.
Yeah, it's already out, I think.
With Lawrence Fishburne as Doc Rivers.
Yeah.
That is an insane casting choice, by the way, which I'm pretty
Um,
excited for. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, but they have, the Oklahoma City is really good. Minnesota's really good. I don't think those teams will challenge them offensively, or challenge them to defend. I don't think either of those teams will challenge them to defend the way Boston will. Boston has more talent. Boston has more guys capable of creating. Boston has more guys that even if you close out to them and run them off the line, they can do more. No, Lively's been great. I don't think he's seen an offense like this. I don't think PJ Washington's seen an offense like this. And I think over the series that'll win out. So I'll go with Boston in 6 as well. I despise both these teams, so who knows how much of the series I will be watching.
How do you expect Boston to guard Luka in like pick and roll?
I think they'll probably switch it up pretty often. I also think they'll probably switch up into zone. I think they'll try that pretty often.
They got some shooters on Dallas, though.
They do. Their centers don't really shoot, though, which I think helps you out. I know they've been great on the offensive glass, but I think Boston's pretty underrated as a defensive rebounding team. I think they'll be okay, especially with Porzingis back. So we'll see. Should be a good series, though, unfortunately. All right, I had them to plug personally, so I'll plug all the work to Strickland. Shout out to Prez, who's dropping all kinds of good draft content right now. Shout out to the whole draft team. I think, forget his at Deuce McBride or something on Twitter. It's not actually Deuce McBride. It's somebody with that at. He dropped a kind of profile, I think, on somebody. Prez is doing stuff on Reddit, so if you're interested in that, take a look at that. Shout out to everybody that's still writing. Matt dropped a piece last week. That was really good. Definitely worth your time to check that out. If you haven't done so already, about Julius Randle and Tom Thibodeau and OG Anunoby and the cases to keep them or the cases to move on from them. So it's all very compelling stuff. So check that out. That is our show for today. Shout out to our sponsor, BetOnline. I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. Won't be too long until you hear me again because I will be back with a pod for you that drops Friday morning with Prez. So be on the lookout for that. All right. Everybody have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you then. Peace.